Welcome back. I am John P. Today we are going to be talking about the 5 most purchased watches on the internet. We're going to be talking about which watches people just cannot seem to get enough of. I know we as collectors and enthusiasts and savants that go on YouTube, watch these videos, talk about watches, go on the forums, go on Instagram. By the way, my Instagram is The Real John P, as well as those that shop at Delray Watch, delraywatch.com. We kind of have a good understanding of what is hot, right? Rolex sports models, Genta-esque or Genta-inspired, that kind of octagonal bezel sports watch with the integrated bracelet. These things are hot, but for many of us, I myself included, sometimes forget that there are so many more watch purchasers than just the enthusiasts, and some of these could be a little bit interesting, I think you might find, but maybe not, depending on how much time you really spend kind of delving into the stats behind the watch world. So I'm gonna be sharing that with you in just a second, but on my wrist today, I have an Enocar Sherpa Super Dive. I love this watch on this canvas strap, very cool, sporty, vintage watch. I just love it. I love vintage. If you watch this channel and you're familiar with what I typically wear. And also please do not forget to check out delraywatch.com, where we truly have so many new watches we've been getting in stock. The watch market is absolutely buzzing and we're here to help you with that. And you can find best premium watch straps on SinclairStraps.com. So let's get right into the list. And by the way, I will say that this is according to Chrono24, Tim Strack, the CEO over at Chrono24, which I've come to become very familiar with over the years. Great guy, by the way, but they are really forward thinking in terms of the data, and so they put out these types of releases, and sometimes our data at Delray Watch matches pretty closely, but largely we're working with enthusiasts, so sometimes they get a little bit different insight and perspective. So this list is going to be based off of data that they published on, I believe, their website, email, newsletter, as well as in Watch Pro, kind of a trade journal. So the first watch is going to be kind of a mixture of watch models. It's going to be a family of watches. It's going to be a Rolex Datejust. Now this is number 1. And I think that this could be shocking to some, because some people are probably thinking, oh, the Submariner, oh, the Daytona, these are going to be the watches that people are buying the most of. But the interesting thing is that in order for the watch to have been bought the most, it also kind of needs to be sold the most, right? That's how it works. And so if people are holding on to the Submariners and the Daytonas, then it just cannot be sold enough to make the top spot in the list. So not only does this go to show that people have quite an appetite for the Rolex Datejust, a model that some people overlook because of its more classic styling, a little less sporty, not really something that you would imagine to be hot, but it is because it says Rolex. But it's interesting that it makes number 1 because it also, once again, shows that people are buying the watch and then selling it, right? They're buying it, they're selling it. It might not be staying in their collection very long. So interesting. Number 1, I personally would have thought it would have been the Submariner, whole family of watches, but it's the Rolex Datejust, and it's a classic timeless watch to boot. So not too shocking, but it does make the list on number 1. Now, number 2, touching on the Rolex again, and this is going to be a list that is Rolex driven, right? This is what's hot, it's what people buy, especially out of the enthusiast world, and sometimes within it. But next we have the Rolex Submariner. Now the Submariner has so many different references and variations, and Rolex produces over 1 million watches a year currently, and so when you add that up over the years, that's a lot of watches, that's a lot of Submariners, and it goes to show that these watches as well are being sold by collectors and those that maybe got on a list and wanted to flip it, or by dealers, right? This list is from the back year of 2021, so some of these watches could have been sitting on shelves at dealers, and then the watch market picked up and got really hot, and that's when the Submariners started selling. Only time will tell, and we can really test the theory on whether or not this is based off of what people want to sell, or if some of this is just kind of backlog within some dealers' holdings and kind of the market prices caught up to the prices that they were asking on platforms like Chrono24. But number 2, in summation, we have the Rolex Submariner. Now next is not a Rolex, that's right. Number 3 in terms of the most sold watches on Chrono24 is going to be the Omega Seamaster. Now Omega has been doing unbelievable things the last few years. Not only have they come out a little bit before that with their own METAS certification that goes above and beyond the chronometer standards, and it includes and accounts for so many other different variations in the watches, including magnetic resistance and other things. They've also been just putting so much time and effort into upping the quality of the watch offerings. Spec for spec, the Omega Seamaster, let's say the Omega Seamaster ceramic bezel with the wave dial current generation beats the Rolex Submariner current generation in everything spec for spec, with the exception of the special steel that Rolex likes to use in their watches. That's really the only thing that they come out and say, if you look at it spec for spec, a little bit better if you consider that to be a plus, and many people do in that regard, whether or not it's actually necessary. So Omega is truly invested in producing a very high quality and fine watch, whereas out there in the market, maybe you really don't see that with brands across the board. It becomes much more marketing. Not that Omega is lacking in marketing or limited editions, like their partnerships with James Bond in the movie series and the Olympics and all that, which is very impressive and notable for a brand to be recognized on that level. But it's about time that Omega does make this list, because I've been talking about it on this channel, that Omega is just doing such a great job. Collectors have really loved them. We sell out of them so quickly at Delray Watch, and it goes to show that on platforms and marketplaces, they're being traded quite frequently as well. Now that takes us into another Omega watch, and I just have my notes here on my laptop, but the next Omega watch is going to be the Omega Speedmaster. Now, of course, this is combining all of the Speedmasters, so when people are going to make their queries and purchase an Omega Speedmaster on the platform, there's different variations, right? We can say the Omega Speedmaster Professional is the most common Omega Speedmaster. That's quintessential moonwatch. That's what people know and love to be the Omega Speedmaster, but there's so many other variations, limited editions, once again touching on the Olympics again, and so many other versions that at this day and age, it's like someone knows they want a Speedmaster, then they kind of get a little bit more nuanced and determine which Speedmaster they want, because the thing with the Speedmasters, except for, with some exceptions, only a handful of exceptions really that I can think of, the Speedmasters all pretty much look the same, and I think that's really nice, right? You start getting into some certain brands and they have a model, and that model has changed so much, everything from case size down to all the other details. It just changes so much to see what works and keep up with the times. But with the Omega Speedmaster, they don't change it up a whole lot, a little bit more than Rolex does with their models, but not too much to where it kind of deviates away from the true Omega Speedmaster. So I think it belongs on this list, and I know many watch collectors like yourself do agree. What do you think? Omega Speedmaster, hot or not? Comments below. And lastly, surprisingly, I thought this would probably be number one, but this is the Rolex Daytona. I don't think there's a lot to be said here. Everyone knows, if you're in the watch collecting community and you watch these videos and you're out there on the internet, people really like the Rolex Daytona. It's a hot watch, several times retail at this price point. You can't get one current version, and even the old ones are selling over what their retails were originally. And let's not even talk about all the subtleties and the Patrizzi dials and these more intricate, nuanced versions of the watches. So Rolex Daytona, number 5, I think that one is certainly obvious. But what do you think? Do you think this list makes sense? Do you think that maybe there are some other watches that deserve to be on this list? I would love to see it and hear it in the comments below. Please do not forget the thumbs up, like, and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. With the subscriptions today, it seems like YouTube has been kind of trickling out information that maybe they're not really focused on subscribers anymore. They're really focused on the views. But I think it's important to me to keep the subscriber count up, so I know that we're making content that you want to see and keeping you in the loop for things that we have available at Delray Watch that maybe you'd like to see. So if there's anything you do want to see, leave that in the comments below as well. Thanks, guys. You've been chatting with John P.